Hello, everybody. This is Logan Cisco from Extemp Central. It's a couple hours after the final rounds of United States International Extemp at the 2011 NFL National Tournament. It's taking place this year in Dallas, Texas. And I think that both rounds this year were both comparably good. I think last year the IX round was better in many ways than the US Extemp round, but I think this year the US Extempers more than held their own, and I think both final rounds were very good, especially the top tier of both final rounds. This video is just briefly going to comment on some of the trends and things that extempers may have seen in these national final rounds and things that they can learn from for future years. One of the things that should stand out is the sources that were being used by the top tier competitors that I ranked high in the round. A lot of the sources that they utilized, which in Dylan Slinger's case was Stratfor, which is an intelligence analysis of different places around the world, policy journals, think tanks. Brookings was cited quite a bit this year in both the U.S. and international extemp final rounds. And then books. Quite a few extempers utilize books in their speeches, and all of these are sources that extempers should look to add to their files. I'm constantly linking to the International Crisis Group for the research and development parts of our website, and those analyses that are provided in these different sources are much deeper than what you're going to find in the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times. It's not to say that those sources don't have a place, but books and these deeper forms of analysis will educate you a lot better about a topic. And you'll notice that when these extempers talked about their books or other analysis, they made sure to provide credentials for the author. That's important because unless they're well known like Thomas Friedman or Paul Krugman or Fareed Zakaria, people aren't going to be as familiar with what credentials this author has to talk about whatever issue is on the table. And so it's very important for extempers that are out there to include the credentials of the author as well as their name when they're citing these publications. So how can you go about getting those? A lot of these publications you can find for free online, or in many cases, if you subscribe already to The Economist, you can get a subscription to Foreign Affairs relatively cheaply. Furthermore, for books in general, you should try to establish a summer reading list. The year before I was successful, from 2002 to 2003, I spent that summer reading a lot of different books pertaining to current affairs. Diplomacy by Henry Kissinger is one I always recommend. I read a book called The China Threat by Bill Gertz of the Washington Times. And by reading these books, I acquired a deeper understanding of the issues, but also developed more confidence about talking about those issues in the future. Another thing extempers will notice by watching this round is the people I ranked highly, they had a lot of specifics. I commented on specifics or lack thereof of several speakers. And you'll notice for Dylan Slinger's speech that when he was talking about Russia and China's demography problems, he cited specifics about what was taking place there. Ashesh Rambachan did the same, although not as much. That's why it's Slinger above him. But he provided a lot of good detailed analysis to back up why it was necessary to control areas, for example, in international commerce and the expansion of U.S. hard power, why it mattered in areas like Somalia. This really helps you tell the story to the audience because I think Extemp's all about telling a story to convince people that your answer to a question is correct. And all of these speakers in this round today all did a fantastic job in the top tier of communicating specifics and how they arrived at the conclusions that they arrived at. The other thing is that you want to pay attention to who answered the question. This was an issue I had with some of the speeches in the round. One thing I liked about Jared Odesky is that he reflected on both the China and the U.S. elements of his question. A lot of extempers in the country would have fallen into the trap of only talking about the U.S. perspective of war with China, or only China's perspective and the challenges they face. But he made sure to address both of those. I think one of the problems that I had with Vijay Singh's speech, even though I had him ranked third, is that the question establishes there's rival currencies to the dollar. Yet we don't get a lot of analysis about those rival currencies that are taking place in the speech. Kevin Yee's speech also talking about America's direction after the death of Osama bin Laden. I think Kevin lays out what America's foreign policy future will be like. But we don't get a lot of analysis about how the death of Osama bin Laden and the war on terrorism will contribute towards getting us to a new foreign policy paradigm. So those were the issues there. It's every word of those questions has meaning, and you need to make sure that all three of your points can tie directly to that question. The last thing I just wanted to hit on was Ben Mabee in his speech. He had a really good first point, but his second point was really lackluster. His analysis on economics was not as good as the analysis that came on the geopolitical situation of how America would undermine China. I think he would have probably been better off just focusing on geopolitics and not even delving into economics. But that demonstrates again, you want to make sure all of the speeches of your all the points, excuse me, of your speeches are clear, and you want to make sure all of them can stand alone. Where if I were to look at one point of your speech, it would answer the question. I wouldn't have to look at anything else. The top people in the rounds made sure to do that. Awards tonight kick off at 5 o'clock. It'll probably take till about 6 or 6:30 to get to the Extemp Awards. But once those are finalized, we will post them online at Extemp Central with a brief write-up of the tournament, and the national points race and such will be finalized on Monday. So check back to Extemp Central for those updates. We appreciate you following us for the coverage of the NFL National Tournament, and we wish all of the finalists tonight before awards the best of luck, and we hope that everything turns out the way that they expect that it will. So until next time, this is Logan Cisco for Extemp Central.